Deaf woman struggled to order coffee at cafe until a single dad signed a message that lit up her smile. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. The Evergreen Cafe was packed to the point where you could barely move without bumping into someone's shopping bags. And the whole place smelled like peppermint and espresso, and that specific kind of chaos that only happens on Christmas Eve when everyone's running late and stressed out. Rachel Morgan stood at the counter in her designer coat that probably cost more than most people spend on Christmas presents, and she was trying real hard not to let the familiar sting of rejection show on her face as the barista stared at her, like she'd just started speaking an alien language. She signed again, slower this time, more deliberate, asking for a peppermint mocha with extra whipped cream. And the kid behind the counter just rolled his eyes in that way that made it clear he thought she was being difficult on purpose. Lady, I don't know what you're doing with your hands, but if you can't talk, maybe try Starbucks or something. We've got a line here. A couple of people behind her chuckled, and someone pulled out their phone to film because apparently public humiliation made for great social media content these days. Rachel's smile faded into that expression she'd perfected over 34 years of being deaf in a world that couldn't be bothered to listen. That mix of hurt and resignation that said this wasn't the first time, and it sure as hell wouldn't be the last. She was about to just leave, go back to her empty penthouse and spend Christmas Eve alone, like she'd done for the past 5 years. When a voice cut through the noise and someone's hand appeared in her line of vision, signing with clear, confident movements. The man was maybe mid-30s with tired eyes and worn jeans and a flannel shirt that had seen better days, but his hands moved like he'd been signing his whole life. "I'm so sorry. What would you like to order?" Rachel's head snapped toward him, eyes wide with shock, because strangers didn't just know sign language, didn't just step in to help, didn't just see her as anything other than an inconvenience. She signed back carefully, like she was testing whether this was real. "Peppermint mocha, extra whipped cream, please." The man turned to the barista and his voice came out firm and kind at the same time. "1 peppermint mocha, extra whipped cream." The kid rang it up without another word, suddenly real interested in the register and not making eye contact. And while they waited, the man signed to Rachel again, and what he said made something in her chest crack wide open. "Merry Christmas. No one should feel invisible on Christmas Eve, or ever." Rachel felt tears prick her eyes, and she couldn't remember the last time someone had said something that actually saw her, really saw her, and her face transformed into this genuine smile that felt rusty from lack of use. A little girl with messy ponytails and bright eyes appeared at the man's side, tugging his sleeve and signing with the enthusiastic chaos only 7-year-olds could pull off. "Dad, is she like me? Does she use hands to talk?" The man signed back to his daughter. "Yes, sweetheart, she's deaf like you." The little girl's whole face lit up, and she practically bounced over to Rachel, signing. "Hi, I'm Emma. It's almost Christmas. Are you excited?" Rachel knelt down without thinking, her expensive coat pooling on the coffee shop floor, and signed back, "I am now. What did you ask Santa for?" Emma's enthusiasm dimmed just slightly. "Just stuff. Dad says Santa's on a budget this year." Rachel's eyes flicked up to the man, Marcus his daughter had called him, and she saw the embarrassment color his face red. When her coffee was ready, she overtipped by like 300%, leaving a $20 bill for a $6 drink, and Marcus noticed immediately, "That's way too much." Rachel signed back, "For the kindness, worth every penny." There was this moment where they just looked at each other, something unspoken passing between two people who understood what it meant to be lonely in a crowded room. And then Rachel did something she never did. She pulled out her business card and handed it to him, the one that said Rachel Morgan, CEO, Morgan and Associates Consulting in fancy raised lettering. Marcus's eyebrows shot up when he read it. "You're a CEO?" Rachel signed with a bitterness that surprised even her. "Turns out you can be very successful and very alone at the same time." Emma grabbed Rachel's hand, signing with that brutal honesty kids have before the world teaches them to be polite. "Will you come back tomorrow? It's Christmas. Nobody should be alone on Christmas." Rachel's throat closed up and she signed, "That's very sweet, but your dad probably has plans." Marcus stepped closer. "Actually, we don't. Emma's right. If you want company tomorrow, We make pretty good company even if dinner's just mac and cheese. Rachel smiled through tears. I'll think about it, and left before she completely fell apart in front of them. That night in her sterile penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a city full of Christmas lights, she couldn't bring herself to hang. Rachel sat in the silence she usually told herself she preferred and realized she was lying. She Googled Marcus Hayes and found a news article from 2 years ago about a local father who lost his wife in a car accident and was raising his deaf daughter alone, working 3 jobs to keep her in a special school. And Rachel's heart just shattered because here was a man with nothing who'd given her everything that mattered. She called the cafe owner, and within an hour she knew exactly what Marcus needed: rent money and groceries and presents for Emma, and a chance to breathe without drowning in bills. So Rachel did what she did best. She wrote a check for $10,000, bought gifts that a 7-year-old would actually want, and had everything delivered to Marcus's apartment building to arrive Christmas morning with a note that just said, "For the man who taught his daughter kindness, from a friend." Christmas morning, Marcus woke up to Emma jumping on his bed screaming that Santa had come for real this time. And when he stumbled into the hallway outside their apartment door, he found it buried in wrapped presents and an envelope with a check that made his hands shake. The note didn't say who it was from, but Marcus pulled Rachel's business card from his wallet and stared at it, and somehow he just knew. Knew that the woman who'd been invisible yesterday had seen him right back, had seen his struggle and his love for his daughter, and had decided to give them the Christmas he couldn't afford. And standing there in his worn pajamas, holding a check that would change everything, Marcus made a decision. He had to find her, had to say thank you, had to understand why someone would do this for strangers, and maybe, just maybe, figure out why his heart was beating faster, just thinking about seeing her again. Emma was tearing through wrapping paper like a tiny tornado, pulling out art supplies and books and a winter coat that actually fit her instead of the too small hand-me-down she'd been wearing since last year. And Marcus just stood there in his pajamas holding a check for $10,000 trying to process how his life had completely flipped upside down in the span of 12 hours. Every gift was thoughtful, not random, like whoever bought them actually knew his daughter, knew what she needed. And when he found a receipt in one of the bags with Morgan and Associates printed at the top, his suspicion turned into certainty. Rachel had done this. The CEO who'd been mocked in a coffee shop and then turned around and gave them Christmas like it was nothing. Except Marcus knew it wasn't nothing because charity never felt like nothing when you were on the receiving end. He paced their tiny living room while Emma played with her new art set, his mind going in circles between gratitude and pride, and this overwhelming need to understand why someone would do this for people she'd met exactly once. Emma watched him for a minute, then signed with her crayon still in hand. "Dad, you're thinking too loud again. It's making my head hurt." Marcus sat down next to her and signed, "Emma, if someone gives you something really big, what do you do?" She thought about it with the seriousness only 7-year-olds could muster. "Say thank you and then give them something back, like when I draw pictures for Harper because she gives us free cookies." Marcus felt his heart squeeze because his kid just nailed in 10 seconds what he'd been wrestling with all morning. "Exactly right, Pumpkin. So I guess we need to go say thank you." The office building where Rachel worked was the kind of place that made Marcus feel like he'd wandered into the wrong universe. All glass and marble and people in suits that cost more than his car. And the receptionist looked him up and down like she was trying to figure out if he was lost or just confused. "Can I help you?" Her tone said she really hoped she couldn't. Marcus squared his shoulders. "I need to see Rachel Morgan, please. It's important." The woman's eyebrow went up. "Do you have an appointment?" When Marcus said no and she started giving him the runaround about leaving a message, he interrupted with more force than he intended. "Just tell her Marcus Hayes is here. From the cafe, she'll know." The receptionist made the call like she was doing him the world's biggest favor, but her expression shifted to shock when Rachel's voice came through saying to send him up immediately, like right now. And suddenly Marcus and Emma were in an elevator heading to the top floor, while Emma signed. "Dad, why are you so nervous?" He signed back, "Because I don't know what to say to someone who just changed our entire lives." Emma grinned. "Start with thank you. That's what you told me to do." Rachel's office was exactly what he expected. Huge windows and minimalist furniture and everything screaming success. But when she turned around from where she'd been standing, looking out at the city, her carefully composed CEO face just crumbled the second she saw Emma Marcus's prepared speech evaporated, and what came out was raw and honest. "I don't know what to say except thank you, and also why. Why would you do this?" Rachel signed, choosing to use her hands instead of her voice like it made her more vulnerable. "Because you saw me, and Emma said nobody should be alone on Christmas. So you made sure we had the Christmas we couldn't afford?" Marcus could hear his voice getting tight. "Rachel, this check is more than I make in 6 months. I can't just take this." Rachel's face went defensive. "I have the money. You needed it. It's simple." But Marcus shook his head. "It's not simple. This is charity, and I don't take charity. I take care of my daughter myself." The words came out harsher than he meant, and he watched Rachel flinch like he'd slapped her. Emma broke the tension by walking straight up to Rachel and signing. "Thank you for my presents, especially the art stuff. How did you know I like to draw?" Rachel knelt down, her voice soft. "I guessed. I'm really glad I guessed right." Emma tilted her head with that kid logic that cut through everything. "Did Santa send you to help him? Because Dad says Santa gets help from angels sometimes." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "Something like that, sweetheart." Marcus felt his anger drain away, watching them together, and when he spoke again, his voice was gentler. "Rachel, I appreciate what you did more than I can say, but I can't keep this money." Rachel stood up, defensive wall slamming back into place. "Why not? You need it. Emma needs it." "Because I don't take charity," Marcus said, and Rachel's face twisted with hurt. "This isn't charity. This is me trying to give someone the Christmas I wish I had." And her voice broke on the last word in a way that made Marcus see past the CEO exterior to the lonely woman underneath. "What kind of Christmas did you have?" he asked quietly. Rachel signed through her tears. "I sat in my apartment alone eating takeout and pretending I was fine. I have everything money can buy and nothing that actually matters. You and Emma have something I've spent my whole life searching for. You have each other. You have love. I just wanted to give you one thing you didn't have, a Christmas without stress." The honesty in her signing, the way her hands shook slightly, made Marcus's chest ache. "You did that," he said, stepping closer. "Emma woke up thinking Santa remembered her, and that's a gift I couldn't give her on my own." Rachel's face was wet with tears. "Then keep the money, please. Let me have this one thing." Marcus shook his head. "I can't just take it, but maybe we can work something out. You said you were alone on Christmas. Don't be alone today. Come have dinner with us. Real dinner this time. And maybe you can teach me how to actually help my daughter instead of just barely surviving." Rachel looked shocked, like the idea of being invited into someone's home was completely foreign. "You want me to come to your apartment?" Marcus smiled. "Emma's right. Nobody should be alone on Christmas. And maybe you can show us that having money and being successful doesn't mean you can't also just be family." Rachel signed, vulnerable and scared. "I don't know how to be around people. I'm better at writing checks than having conversations." Marcus signed back, his hands steady. "Good thing we don't need conversation. We have this." And he held up his hands, showing the sign language that connected them. 6 hours later, Rachel was sitting on the floor of Marcus's tiny apartment, covered in paint from Emma's art supplies, laughing in a way she probably hadn't laughed in years. And Marcus was reading A Christmas Story out loud while signing the words. And Emma was falling asleep against Rachel's shoulder, like it was the most natural thing in the world. When Rachel's phone buzzed with a work emergency, and she actually told them she'd deal with it later instead of immediately, Marcus knew something had shifted, something important that neither of them were quite ready to name yet. At the door when she was leaving, Marcus caught her hand. "Rachel, I still can't keep all that money, but what if we made a deal? You gave us Christmas. Let us give you something back. Come to dinner next week, and the week after that, let us show you what you gave us with your gift. Let us give you family." Rachel's tears started again, and she signed. "You'd want that even though I'm awkward and don't know how to do any of this?" Marcus stepped closer, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "Especially because of that. Emma needs someone who understands what it's like to be different, and I need someone who sees me the way I saw you in that cafe." Rachel closed the distance and hugged him, and it was the first real hug she'd had in years, the kind that felt like coming home to a place she didn't know existed. Marcus held her while she cried, and when she finally pulled back and signed same time next week, with a watery smile he signed back, "Bring your appetite. Emma wants to make you her specialty mac and cheese." And they both laughed because somehow in the middle of all this mess, they'd found something neither of them had been looking for, but both of them desperately needed. 1 week turned into 2, then 3, then a month. And every single time Rachel showed up at Marcus's door, she brought groceries she insisted on contributing. And every single time, she stayed a little longer than the time before, like she was testing whether this family thing was real or if it would disappear the second she let herself actually believe in it. Her business partner, David, started noticing she was leaving the office at 5 p.m. instead of her usual 9. And the third time it happened, he cornered her by the elevator, looking genuinely confused. "You're leaving early again. What's going on with you?" Rachel didn't even slow down, just kept packing up her laptop. "I have dinner plans." David's expression said he thought she'd lost her mind. "Rachel, the Phoenix merger needs your attention. This is a $2 million deal we're talking about." She turned and looked at him like he'd just suggested something completely unreasonable. "And it'll still be a $2 million deal tomorrow. I have somewhere I need to be." David actually sputtered. "Since when do you prioritize anything over work?" Rachel smiled, and it was the kind of smile that came from somewhere real. "Since I remember there are things more important than money." The weeks blurred together in the best possible way. Rachel learning how to cook actual food instead of just ordering takeout, Emma teaching her how to finger paint and getting them both covered in every color imaginable, building snowmen in the park, and Rachel laughing so hard she couldn't breathe when Emma nailed Marcus in the face with a snowball. For Marcus's birthday, Rachel brought cupcakes she'd made herself. They were lopsided and kind of ugly, but he ate 3 of them and told her they were perfect. And watching her face light up at the compliment made his chest feel too small for his heart. But reality has this way of crashing parties right when you're starting to think maybe things can actually be good. And in mid-January, David barged into Rachel's office with a file folder and an expression that said someone was about to have a very bad day. "We have a problem. The Portland contract fell through and we're losing $400,000. Rachel was on a video call with Emma, who was showing her the latest drawing, a picture of 3 people holding hands labeled "My Family," and she had to force herself to focus. "What happened?" David's voice was ice cold. "Client said our response time has been too slow lately. And you know what, Rachel? They're right. Ever since Christmas, you've been distracted." The accusation hung in the air between them, and David wasn't done. He was on a roll now, and apparently had been holding this in for weeks. "You've been leaving early, refusing weekend work, actually taking lunch breaks like some entry-level employee. What's going on? Is this a midlife crisis, or are you just done caring about the company we built?" Rachel stood up, anger flashing in her eyes. "I care, but I also care about other things now, like having an actual life outside these 4 walls." David scoffed. "A life? You mean that single dad and his kid you've been playing house with? That's not family, Rachel. That's a charity project that's costing you your business." Rachel's hands clenched into fists. "His name is Marcus. His daughter's name is Emma. And they're not a project. They're my family." David laughed, actually laughed. "You've known them 6 weeks. That's not family. And when this company tanks because you're too busy playing mom to some stranger's kid, don't say I didn't warn you." Rachel told him to get out, her voice shaking with fury. And after he left, she sat alone in her office, staring at her calendar, where Emma's school play and a client meeting were scheduled for the same night. And for the first time in her career, she genuinely didn't know which one to choose. That evening, she met Marcus at the cafe looking wrecked, and he knew immediately something was wrong because she was doing that thing where she wouldn't make eye contact. "Talk to me," he said gently, and Rachel signed because speaking felt too hard right then. "My business partner thinks I'm ruining my company by spending time with you and Emma." Marcus's face fell. "Is he right?" Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know. Maybe I've never not put work first before, and I'm terrified I'm screwing up everything." Marcus pulled back slightly, and she could see him building walls in real time. Rachel, if we're causing problems in your life, if this is too much for you to handle, she grabbed his hands, desperate. No, you're not the problem. You're the only thing that feels right. Marcus's voice dropped to barely a whisper. But, Rachel's tears spilled over. But I'm scared I don't know how to balance both. Scared I'll fail at work, or fail with you, or fail at everything, and lose it all. Marcus signed, his hands shaking slightly with emotion. I'm scared too. Scared that one day you'll wake up and realize you don't belong in my tiny apartment eating mac and cheese. That you'll go back to your penthouse and your CEO life and forget about the broke single dad and his deaf daughter. Rachel's face crumpled. Marcus, that's not... But he kept going. I see the way people look at us when we're together. Like they're trying to figure out what you're doing with someone like me. And honestly, sometimes I wonder the same thing. Rachel signed so fiercely her hands were almost a blur. Look at me. Really look at me. When his eyes met hers, she continued. Every single person in my life before you wanted something from me, money or connections or business deals. But you and Emma are the only people who ever just wanted me. Just Rachel, not the CEO or the bank account. Just me. Her voice broke. So don't you dare think for 1 second that you're not enough, because you're everything I never knew I needed. Marcus pulled her close and kissed her like he'd been wanting to for weeks, and when they broke apart, they were both crying. I love you, he said, his voice rough. I know it's too soon and probably crazy, but I love you. Rachel signed through her tears. It's not too soon, and I love you too. 3 days later, Marcus called her in the middle of a meeting, and she answered immediately, something she never would have done 2 months ago. His voice was pure panic. Rachel, I need you. Emma collapsed at school. Something's wrong with her cochlear implant, and she's in pain, in the hospital, and I can't afford the emergency room. Rachel was already grabbing her coat. Which hospital? I'm on my way. Marcus tried to protest, but she cut him off. I'm her family too. I'll be there in 10 minutes. She found Marcus in the ER waiting room, with his head in his hands, looking like his entire world was ending. And when she sat down and took his hand, he just broke. I can't afford this. The ER visit alone is thousands, and her implant might need surgery. Rachel's voice was firm. I've got it, whatever it costs. Marcus started to argue about pride and charity, but Rachel stopped him. This isn't about pride. This is about Emma. Let me help. When the doctor said Emma was fine, just needed the implant reprogrammed, and that someone had already taken care of the bill, Marcus looked at Rachel and she just shrugged. I told them I was family. They brought Emma home that night and she signed to Rachel, Are you going to be my mom now? The question hung in the air like something sacred. And Rachel looked at Marcus, who looked back at her with hope and fear and love all mixed together. And she signed to Emma. Yes, if you and your dad will have me, yes. 1 year later on Christmas Eve, they walked into Evergreen Cafe as a family. Rachel wearing the engagement ring Marcus had given her 3 months earlier when he'd gotten down on one knee in this exact spot and signed, You gave me Christmas, let me give you forever. Harper brought their usual orders without asking, called them family, and Emma showed them her latest drawing of 3 people holding hands labeled, My Forever Family. Marcus handed Rachel an envelope, and inside was a deed to the cafe, both their names on it as co-owners. Harper's retiring, and I couldn't let this place go to strangers. This is where our family started. Rachel cried happy tears while Emma cheered because they got to run the cafe together. And that night in their small house that they'd bought together, with wedding photos on the mantle from their November ceremony, and Emma asleep surrounded by modest but thoughtful presents, Marcus signed to Rachel. Last year you walked into that cafe alone. Rachel smiled. And you saw me when I was invisible. Marcus pulled her close. This year we're married, we own a cafe, we're a family. How did this happen? Rachel kissed him softly. You signed a message that lit up my smile, and I never stopped smiling. Sometimes the loneliest night of your life is actually the beginning of everything you never knew you needed. Sometimes a stranger's kindness in a coffee shop becomes the foundation of a family. Sometimes Christmas miracles don't come wrapped in paper. They come wrapped in the courage to let people see you, really see you, and the bravery to let yourself be loved. If this story reminded you that no one should be invisible, that kindness costs nothing but means everything, and that family is built by the people who show up when you need them most, hit that subscribe button. Merry Christmas, and thank you for being here with us.